What if everything you ever believed about your life, your home, your family, your entire identity, was a lie? What if the person who tucked you in at night, who sang to you when you were scared, who told you over and over again that she loved you, was actually the villain of your own story? And what if you spent 18 years believing that the outside world was nothing but cold, cruel, and dangerous, only to discover that the danger had been sleeping right there in the same tower with you this whole time? That is the beating heart of Tangled, Disney's 50th animated feature film, a movie so layered, so emotionally intelligent, and so masterfully crafted that it has quietly become one of the most psychologically rich fairy tales ever put to screen. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. It's a Disney princess movie. And yeah, on the surface, sure. There's a girl. There's a prince, well, technically a charming thief. There's a villain, a magical castle, a frying pan used as a weapon more times than you'd expect, and a horse that somehow has more personality than half the humans in most Hollywood blockbusters. But peel back that glittering, lantern-lit surface, and what you find underneath is a story about emotional manipulation. About gaslighting. About what it means to grow up in a controlled environment and have the courage, the sheer, terrifying courage, to walk out the door anyway. This movie came out in 2010. It earned over $590 million worldwide. It was nominated for 2 Academy Awards. And in the years since, it has grown into something genuinely rare for an animated film, a piece of storytelling that people who grew up watching it now revisit as adults, and suddenly see an entirely different movie. So today, we are going deep. We're talking full story breakdown, character analysis, themes, symbolism, the music, the animation, the directing choices, all of it. If you have never seen Tangled, buckle up, because I'm about to walk you through one of the most underrated masterpieces in Disney's entire catalog. And if you have seen it, I promise you, by the end of this video, you're going to want to watch it again with completely fresh eyes. Let's get into it. Section 2, Movie Overview. Estimated runtime, 4 to 5 minutes. Tangled was released on November 24, 2010, right in the middle of what many Disney historians and animation fans call the Disney Revival era, or sometimes the Second Disney Renaissance. This was a period that roughly spanned from the mid-2000s into the 2010s, where Disney animation, separate from Pixar, which had already become its own juggernaut, was trying to rediscover what made them great. The film was directed by Nathan Greno and Byron Howard. Byron Howard had previously directed Bolt back in 2008, which was a solid film but hadn't quite broken through to classic status. With Tangled, though, he and Greno had something different. Something that, from the very beginning of production, was clearly reaching for something bigger. The development of Tangled was notoriously long and turbulent. The film spent nearly a decade in various stages of development, originally titled Rapunzel before being renamed in a somewhat controversial marketing decision that we'll get back to, and it reportedly cost somewhere in the neighborhood of $260 million to produce, making it one of the most expensive animated films ever made at the time. The voice cast is remarkable. Rapunzel is voiced by Mandy Moore, who brings this incredible blend of innocence, wonder, and buried longing to the character. Flynn Rider, the male lead and narrator, is voiced by Zachary Levi, who was primarily known for his work on the TV show Chuck at the time. Levi brings this roguish, sarcastic charm to Flynn that could easily have felt one note, but instead evolves into something genuinely moving. And then there's Donna Murphy, who voices Mother Gothel, and honestly, Donna Murphy's performance might be the single most underappreciated voice acting turn in Disney history. We'll talk extensively about her when we get to the character analysis. The music was composed by Alan Menken, the legendary composer behind films like The Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, and Aladdin. Lyrics were written by Glenn Slater. This creative combination brought a Broadway-caliber sensibility to the soundtrack, and the result is a score and song list that feels simultaneously classic Disney and completely fresh. Now, here's something important to understand about the cultural moment this film stepped into. By 2010, the Disney Princess brand was at a crossroads. There had been a lot of conversation, some of it quite pointed, about whether traditional fairy tale princess narratives were outdated. Were they too passive? too focused on romantic love? Did they send the right messages to young audiences? The Princess and the Frog in 2009 had addressed some of this with Tiana's hard-working, career-focused characterization. But Disney was still navigating how to tell princess stories in a modern world. Tangled answered that question in a way that felt organic rather than corrective. Rapunzel isn't passive. She isn't waiting to be saved. From the very first minutes of the film, she is a person with dreams, with desires, with intellectual curiosity and emotional depth. Her arc isn't about finding love. Love is just one part of a much richer story about identity, freedom, and self-discovery. Audiences responded. Tangled opened to strong reviews, currently sitting at 89% on Rotten Tomatoes, and became a genuine cultural phenomenon. The I See the Light sequence became the film's iconic centerpiece. The character of Flynn Rider spawned memes that are still circulating to this day. And Rapunzel became arguably the most emotionally complex Disney princess in Belle. But the real testament to the film's power is what it continues to mean to people, particularly survivors of controlling or emotionally abusive relationships, who recognize in Rapunzel's journey something deeply, uncomfortably familiar. Let's talk about why. Section 3, Full Story Breakdown. Estimated runtime, 35 to 40 minutes. Act 1, The Tower and the World Outside. The film opens with Flynn Rider, real name Eugene Fitzherbert, a detail that will matter enormously later, speaking directly to us in voiceover. Right away, this is a clever structural choice. We're being guided through this story by Flynn, which immediately establishes him as a narrator with perspective and self-awareness. He's not in the middle of the story when he's telling it, he's looking back. Something has changed him. And that mystery, that sense of retrospective wisdom, hangs over the entire first act. Flynn begins with the legend of the sun drop. Long ago, a single drop of sunlight fell from the sky and gave life to a magical golden flower on a hillside. This flower had the power to heal the sick and reverse the effects of aging. And for centuries, a woman named Mother Gothel used it in secret, singing to it, hoarding it, to keep herself young and beautiful. The animation here is gorgeous. The way Disney depicts the golden flower, luminous, almost celestially lit, impossibly warm against the cool shadows of the hillside, sets up the visual language of the entire film. Gold equals life. Gold equals power. And gold equals Rapunzel. The Kingdom of Corona celebrates a new royal baby, a princess born to the king and queen. But the queen falls deathly ill during her pregnancy, and the desperate kingdom sends soldiers out to find the legendary flower. They find it. They use it. And the queen recovers, giving birth to a healthy baby girl with long, golden, magical hair. Mother Gothel, however, discovers that the flower's magic has been transferred into the princess's hair. Specifically, when someone sings a particular incantation to Rapunzel's hair, it glows gold and heals wounds or reverses age, but only as long as the hair remains uncut. The moment it's severed, the magic vanishes and the hair turns brown, mundane, dead. So Gothel does what Gothel does. She steals the baby. She kidnaps the infant princess and sequesters her in a hidden tower deep in the forest, far from the kingdom. She raises Rapunzel as her own daughter. And the kingdom is left in mourning, the king and queen releasing thousands of sky lanterns every year on the princess's birthday in the hope that somehow, wherever she is, she'll see them and find her way home. This setup is efficient and devastating. In roughly 4 to 5 minutes, Disney has established every major piece of the story's engine: Rapunzel's true identity, Gothel's motive, the kingdom's ongoing grief, and the sky lanterns as a symbol of connection across an impossible distance. We then jump forward 18 years. Rapunzel is now a young woman, and her tower is remarkable. It's not a dungeon. It's not a cage, exactly. It's filled with books, paintings, musical instruments, thousands of square feet of Rapunzel's own artwork covering every surface. It is simultaneously breathtaking and suffocating. And that tension is entirely intentional. The first time we see adult Rapunzel, she is moving through her day with an almost manic energy, painting, reading, knitting, cooking, playing guitar, doing darts, doing ballet, doing ventriloquism. The song When Will My Life Begin captures this perfectly. She fills every single hour of every single day with activity, because the alternative is to sit still and feel the walls closing in. Rapunzel has a single, consuming dream, to see the sky lanterns. Every year on her birthday, which is also, though she doesn't know it, the birthday of the lost princess, she watches the lights rise from far away and feels an inexplicable connection to them. She has painted them on her tower walls hundreds of times. They are, in her own words, not just something she wants to see. They are something she needs to see, as if her very identity is somehow tethered to them. When Gothel returns to the tower, we get our first real dose of her, and it's immediately, viscerally uncomfortable. Donna Murphy plays Mother Gothel as a woman who has perfected the art of emotional manipulation so thoroughly that she may not even be fully conscious of doing it anymore. Every compliment is wrapped in a criticism. Every I love you is immediately undercut with a but. She calls Rapunzel Flower, a possessive, infantilizing nickname, and constantly emphasizes how dangerous the outside world is, how vulnerable Rapunzel would be, how people are cruel and untrustworthy. When Rapunzel asks to go see the lanterns for her birthday, Gothel's response is a masterclass in gaslighting. She doesn't say no. She says you're not ready. She escalates the danger. She makes Rapunzel feel foolish for even asking. She delivers the song Mother Knows Best, which is framed as a loving, funny, theatrical maternal number, but listen to the lyrics. Really listen. Every single line is a message. You are weak, you are naive, you are special only to me, and the world will destroy you without my protection. It is, without exaggeration, one of the most precise depictions of coercive control ever written into a Disney song. Meanwhile, across the kingdom, Flynn Rider and the Stabbington brothers have successfully stolen the lost princess's crown from the castle. During the chase that follows, one of Disney Animation's most kinetic, hilarious, and technically astonishing action sequences, Flynn is separated from the brothers, finds himself on a cliff, and stumbles through a hidden door in the rock face into a secret location, Rapunzel's tower. Flynn climbs in. Rapunzel, who has never seen another human being other than Gothel, immediately clobbers him with her frying pan. This is our first true laugh out loud moment, and it works beautifully because it simultaneously establishes Rapunzel as capable and resourceful, and Flynn as comically vulnerable beneath all his swagger. When he comes to, Rapunzel hides the crown and strikes a deal: take her to see the lanterns, and she'll return it. Flynn is incredulous, then reluctant, then resigned. He has no leverage. She has his satchel. And so begins one of cinema's most charming and genuinely funny road trip duos. Act 2: The World, the Road, and the Reckoning. When Rapunzel first steps outside the tower, her feet touching the grass for the first time in her memory, the scene is played with extraordinary emotional honesty. She goes back and forth, literally stepping in and out through the window, laughing and then overwhelmed with guilt, soaring and then crashing. She swings from "this is the greatest feeling in the world" to "I am the worst daughter alive" in about 90 seconds. This is psychologically exact. Anyone who has ever left a controlling environment, a relationship, a family dynamic, a cult-like situation, will recognize this oscillation. The exhilaration of freedom and the crushing weight of internalized guilt are not experienced sequentially. They happen simultaneously, and they are exhausting. Flynn watches this with bemused detachment at first, and then something shifts in his expression. A crack in the performance. He wasn't expecting this. He wasn't expecting her to be real. They travel through the woods toward the kingdom. Gothel, having returned to the tower and found both Rapunzel and the crown gone, goes into calculated crisis mode. She tracks down the Stabbington brothers, who are furious at Flynn for keeping the crown, and makes a deal with them to get Rapunzel back. She is, as always, playing multiple pieces on the board simultaneously. Flynn, trying to scare Rapunzel into turning back, takes her to the Snuggly Duckling, a rough tavern full of enormous, scarred, intimidating thugs. His plan is to terrify her. It backfires spectacularly when Rapunzel, with genuine openness and curiosity, asks the thugs about their dreams. And in the film's most delightful song, "I've Got a Dream," we discover that every single one of these hulking, intimidating men secretly harbors gentle, whimsical aspirations. One wants to be a concert pianist, another a mime, another a florist. It's a comedy set piece, but it also carries real thematic weight. People are more than how they look. More than the role they play. Everyone has an inner self that they keep hidden. Flynn Rider included. The royal guard arrives, led by the magnificently expressive horse Maximus. Maximus is, and I want to be precise here, the single greatest animated non-verbal character in Disney's history. He has no lines. He communicates entirely through gesture, movement, expression, and physical comedy. And yet he is fully three-dimensional, with clear motivations, an almost religious devotion to law and order, personal growth, and genuine emotional moments. He is a comedic masterpiece and an animation achievement. The group escapes through a secret passage shown to them by the thugs. Flynn and Rapunzel end up in a flooding cave, a scene that is simultaneously the film's most visually arresting sequence and its pivotal emotional turning point. The water is rising. They cannot find an exit. The lights go out. And in the darkness, facing what seems like death, they are honest with each other for the first time. Flynn confesses his real name, Eugene Fitzherbert, the name of an orphan who read a story about a dashing rogue named Flynn Rider and decided to become him. To escape. To create a different self. Rapunzel, who has lived her entire life as someone else's fabrication, hears this confession and something deep in her responds to it. She tells him her secret in return, that her hair is magic. That it glows. They find an escape by following the faint glow of her hair underwater. Life, literally illuminated by what makes her unique. They emerge into the cool night air. They make camp. They talk about the future, what comes after this, what Flynn wants, what Rapunzel dreams of. And for the first time, the chemistry between them isn't banter. It's something more genuine. More vulnerable. The next day brings the Kingdom of Corona, and here the film hits what I consider its most emotionally overwhelming sequence outside the climax, Rapunzel's arrival in the village. She has never been here. She doesn't know consciously that this is her home. But she's painted these lanterns her whole life. She's drawn the kingdom's sigil, a sun, on her tower walls over and over without knowing what it meant. And as she wanders through the village square, she finds that same sun mosaic in the cobblestones. She finds it on the flags. She finds it echoed in the architecture everywhere she looks. She dances with the villagers. She climbs to the top of a tall structure and looks out over the kingdom. There is a close-up of her expression, and it is not simple happiness. It is recognition. Deep, precognitive, bone-deep recognition. Like she's looking at something she already knew existed but didn't have words for. This is her home. She just doesn't have the language for it yet. That evening, in the boats on the water as the lanterns rise, the film reaches its artistic zenith. The sequence set to I See the Light is, I'll just say it plainly, one of the finest animated sequences ever created. The lanterns filling the sky, the warm gold against the deep blue night, the two of them in a single small boat surrounded by thousands of floating lights. It is breathtaking in a way that very few animated films have ever managed. And the song itself is doing something precise. It's not a love song in the conventional sense. It's a song about seeing clearly for the first time. About the world coming into focus. All at once, everything looks different, now that I see you. That lyric works on multiple levels. It's about Flynn seeing Rapunzel truly, and it's about Rapunzel finally seeing the world and herself truly. The lanterns she has sought her whole life are, in this moment, pointing her toward her own identity. Flynn, in this moment, makes the decision to hand Rapunzel the crown. He doesn't need it anymore. He's found something more real. And then the Stabbington brothers ambush them. In a rapid sequence of devastating betrayals, Flynn is framed for stealing the crown, arrested, and taken to be hanged. Rapunzel is rendered unconscious and wakes up in the care of Mother Gothel, who presents the scene as proof of everything she always said: people are untrustworthy, the world is dangerous, Flynn only wanted the crown and he's gone now. Rapunzel, wounded and unconscious and off balance, is brought back to the tower. Back to the cage. And the door swings shut. Act 3: Truth, Sacrifice, and the Breaking of Everything. Now we reach the film's true climax. And it doesn't begin with a sword fight. It begins with a painting. Rapunzel sits in the tower, Grief-stricken and hollow. Her eyes move over her own murals, all those images she's painted thousands of times. The floating lights. The sun. The patterns she's drawn without knowing why. And then, slowly, in one of Disney's most quietly devastating sequences, the pieces connect. The sun sigil. The lanterns on her birthday. The kingdom. The lost princess. The year of her birth. She turns to Gothel and, in a voice that is barely above a whisper but carries the force of an earthquake, says, "I am the lost princess." And Gothel's response tells us everything. She doesn't deny it smoothly. She hesitates, just half a second, but it's enough. And in that half second, 18 years of carefully constructed reality collapse. What follows is an extraordinary scene. Because Rapunzel isn't just realizing the truth about her identity. She's realizing the truth about Gothel. About every memory she has. About every act of love she ever received. She plays back her entire life in real time and sees it with new eyes, not as protection, but as possession. Not as maternal love, but as theft. And instead of crumbling, she hardens into something unbreakable. "You were wrong about the world," she tells Gothel. "And you were wrong about me. And I will never let you use my hair again." This is Rapunzel's true climax. Not the fight that follows. Not the magical healing. This moment of naming the lie, out loud, to the person who told it. Meanwhile, Eugene has been dragged to the gallows. The Stabbington brothers have been arrested. And in a sequence that is thrilling and deeply funny and somehow emotionally genuine all at once, the thugs from the Snuggly Duckling stage a prison break to free Eugene, fulfilling, in the process, one of their own dreams. Apparently, one of them had always wanted to be part of a prison break. Maximus, the horse, leads the charge. Eugene escapes on horseback and races back toward the tower. But Gothel, alerted that something has gone wrong, gets there first. She stabs Eugene. When Eugene climbs through the window and collapses, the terror on Rapunzel's face is something I want to pause on. Because it's not just fear. It's a specific, refined horror, the horror of someone who has lived inside the language of manipulation and is now watching a real wound, a real consequence, and realizing that everything that came before it was hollow. Gothel's constructed danger was never real. This is. Gothel chains Eugene and offers a horrific bargain. She'll let Rapunzel heal him if Rapunzel agrees to come with her willingly. No more fighting. No more resistance. Come back to the tower. Forever. Rapunzel agrees. She'll sacrifice her freedom to save Eugene. And in the moment she makes this choice, which is entirely genuine, entirely selfless, she becomes the hero of her own story in the fullest sense. But Eugene makes a different choice. As Rapunzel moves toward him to use her hair, he pulls out a shard of mirror and cuts her hair. Destroys the magic. Removes Gothel's weapon forever. It costs him everything. Without the healing magic, he will die from his wound. And Gothel, without the magic that has kept her alive for centuries, ages in seconds, stumbles, falls from the tower window, and turns to dust before she hits the ground. The way to stolen time, finally reclaimed. Rapunzel cradles Eugene. She sings to him, not the incantation, just herself singing, just her voice, just her love. A tear falls. A single golden light blooms in the darkness. And Eugene breathes. There's a moment after he comes back, where he looks at her, her short brown hair, her ordinary face, and says the line that, for my money, is the most perfectly written line in the movie, "You were my new dream." Short. Simple. Devastating. Epilogue. The ending is brisk, joyful, and earned. Rapunzel returns to Corona. The king and queen's faces when they see her, when the king, this man who has released lanterns for 18 years and never stopped hoping, is one of the most emotionally complex moments in the film. He doesn't speak. He doesn't need to. He just holds her. Eugene is pardoned. He and Rapunzel eventually marry. The kingdom celebrates. Maximus remains a beloved figure of law enforcement. The thugs pursue their dreams. And Pascal, Rapunzel's chameleon companion, who is adorable and should receive more credit, continues to be the most supportive friend imaginable. Flynn closes with one more voiceover, gently poking fun at the "and they lived happily ever after" convention, and then committing to it anyway, because, he says, in their case, it happens to be true. It is a perfect ending. Section 4, Character and performance analysis, estimated runtime, 8 to 10 minutes. Rapunzel, Mandy Moore. Rapunzel is the engine of this movie, and Mandy Moore's performance is the reason she works as well as she does. What Moore does incredibly well is thread the needle between childlike wonder and adult emotional intelligence. Rapunzel has lived in extreme isolation for 18 years, she should, by any realistic measure, be institutionalized in some way. And yet she is an apostrophe T. She's curious, empathetic, warm, funny, and ultimately enormously brave. What makes this credible is the subtlety Moore brings to Rapunzel's underlying tension. Under the energy, under the jokes, under the enthusiasm, you can always hear it, a quiet, barely suppressed longing. A girl who is always slightly too bright, slightly too enthusiastic, as if she knows at some level that she needs to be enough for herself because no one else is coming. Moore also navigates Rapunzel's internal conflict with Gothel beautifully. The guilt she feels after leaving the tower isn't performed or exaggerated, it's the genuine psychological weight of conditioned behavior. And when Rapunzel finally confronts Gothel at the film's climax, Moore's voice drops in register and loses its musical quality entirely. She sounds, for the first time in the movie, like someone who is done pretending. Flynn Rider, Eugene Fitzherbert, Zachary Levi. Flynn Rider is one of Disney's great character construction projects. He is introduced as a smooth, winking, thoroughly self-interested rogue, and he is charming as hell at it. Zachary Levi's voice performance has a looseness and confidence that makes Flynn immediately likable even at his most selfish. But the genius of the character is in the gap between Flynn Rider and Eugene Fitzherbert. Flynn is a persona, a construction, a chosen role. Eugene is what's underneath, an orphan, a lonely kid who read a storybook and decided that becoming its hero was better than being himself. He built Flynn the way Gothel built Rapunzel's worldview, out of fear, out of self-protection, out of a desperate need to control how the world perceived him. Rapunzel, without even trying, dismantles that persona. Because she doesn't see Flynn the smooth criminal, she sees Eugene the person, and she finds him interesting and worth knowing. For someone who has been performing a character his whole adult life, this is extraordinary. Terrifying, even. And Levi captures that subtle vulnerability, that moment when the mask slips, just slightly, with a lightness of touch that never lets the film get too heavy. Mother Gothel, Donna Murphy. This is the performance of the film. Not the loudest, not the most demonstrative, the most precise. Donna Murphy is a Broadway legend, Tony Award winner, one of the great vocal performers of her generation. And she brings every tool in that toolkit to Mother Gothel, creating a villain who is uniquely frightening because she never feels like a villain while she's on screen. Watch the way Murphy delivers Gothel's affectionate moments, the laughs, the sing-songy rhythms, the playful teasing. They are perfectly calibrated to feel loving. This is the performance of a narcissistic parent, someone who has so thoroughly convinced themselves that they love their child that their manipulation feels, to them, genuine. And Murphy plays that conviction completely. There is no mustache twirling. There is no "I'm doing this for selfish reasons" subtext in her voice. Her Gothel believes what she's saying, even when what she's saying is monstrous. I See the Light is the film's famous song, but Mother Knows Best is the one that should be studied in acting classes. Every line Murphy delivers in that song is a specific manipulation tactic with a name: belittling, catastrophizing, isolation, love bombing, and she delivers them all while sounding like she's having the time of her life, playing the world's most charming mother. Maximus, non-verbal, animated performance. I genuinely believe that if there were a category for Best Non-Verbal Animated Performance at the Academy Awards, Maximus would have won it. The animators working on this character, drawing on inspiration from human body language and horse behavior simultaneously, created something extraordinary. Maximus's comedic timing is impeccable. His emotional range is extraordinary. And his arc, from rigid rule follower to Flynn's ally to genuine friend, is as complete as any character in the film. His reluctant handshake agreement with Flynn midway through the film should be in every animation school's curriculum. It's perfect. Section 5, Themes, Symbolism and Subtext, estimated runtime, 7 to 8 minutes. Coercive control and emotional abuse. This is the film's deepest and most serious theme, and it deserves to be addressed directly. The relationship between Gothel and Rapunzel is a textbook depiction of narcissistic parental abuse. Gothel uses isolation. Rapunzel literally cannot leave. Information control. Rapunzel knows nothing of the outside world except what Gothel tells her. Emotional manipulation. I do everything for you. Intermittent reinforcement, alternating warmth and criticism, and induced guilt to maintain her hold over Rapunzel. What's crucial is that Rapunzel isn't depicted as stupid or weak for falling for this. Coercive control doesn't work by being obvious. It works precisely because it's disguised as love. And Rapunzel, who has no other frame of reference, no other relationship to compare it to, genuinely doesn't know that what she's living isn't normal love. Her awakening is gradual. It happens through experience, through meeting people who treat her as a fully realized person rather than as something precious to be protected. Through Eugene, who challenges her and respects her at the same time. Through the village, which doesn't hurt her. Through the kingdom, which embraces her. And finally, through the painting on her own wall, through her own art, her own instincts, which were telling her the truth all along. The magic hair as identity. Rapunzel's hair is rich with symbolic meaning. On the most literal level, it is her prison, the reason Gothel keeps her hidden, the chain that connects her to her captor. Severing the hair is the only way to permanently break Gothel's power over her. But the hair is also Rapunzel's birthright. Her inheritance from the sun drop. Her connection to her true family and her kingdom. And interestingly, the hair is most visibly magical. It glows, it heals, precisely when Rapunzel is in contact with someone else, when she's using it in relationship rather than in isolation. This is a pointed symbol. What Gothel has made into a secret, a possession, a source of control, is actually Rapunzel's connection to the wider world. Her power isn't diminished when Eugene cuts it, because by that point, Rapunzel's real strength has nothing to do with her hair. It is her love, her courage, and her clarity of self that ultimately bring Eugene back. The sun symbol and recognition. Pay attention to how many times the sun sigil appears in the film before Rapunzel's revelation. It's on the kingdom's flags. It's in the mosaic in the town square. It's painted on the king and queen's tower. And it is, of course, the symbol of the sun drop, the original source of Rapunzel's magic. And here's the thing, Rapunzel has been drawing this sun her whole life. It's part of the mural on her tower. She doesn't know what it means, but she keeps returning to it, over and over. Her unconscious knows what her conscious mind has been denied. This is one of the film's most elegant pieces of visual storytelling, the idea that our true self persists even under systematic suppression. That some knowledge is too deep to be buried completely. The lanterns as hope across distance. The sky lanterns are, on a practical level, the king and queen's way of telling their lost daughter, we are still here. We are still looking. Come home. But they function for Rapunzel as a symbol of something larger, the possibility that somewhere out there, something is meant for her. Some belonging that she can't fully articulate. They call to her the way that people in painful or limiting circumstances often find themselves drawn inexplicably towards something they can't name, the feeling that somewhere there is a life that is actually theirs. And when she finally sees them, when the lanterns fill the sky above her and she reaches out and cups one in her hands, it is not the end of her journey. It is the beginning of recognizing what the journey was for. Identity and the chosen name. Flynn Rider chose his name. He chose his persona. He chose who he wanted to be seen as. And Rapunzel, whose very birth name was kept from her, chooses to reclaim hers. These two characters are mirrored in their relationship to identity, one who constructed a false self to hide behind, and one who was denied a true self entirely. And what they give each other, more than romance, is permission, to be known, to be real, to carry their own name without shame. Section 6, Technical and Artistic Review, Estimated Runtime, 8 to 10 minutes. Animation Style and Technical Achievement. Let me be direct. Tangled is a technical landmark in the history of computer animation. Released in the same era as films like How to Train Your Dragon and Toy Story 3, it represented a particular aesthetic ideal, the attempt to blend the warmth and painterly quality of traditional hand-drawn animation with the spatial freedom and physical possibility of CG. The filmmakers looked specifically to the paintings of Rembrandt, using the Dutch master's approach to light as a visual reference. The result is an animated film where the lighting doesn't feel like game engine output or artificial rendering, it feels like a painted canvas brought to life. Warm golds and deep blues dominate the palette. The difference between the inside of the tower, warm, golden, but enclosed, and the outside world, vast, cool, open, is communicated entirely through light. Rapunzel's hair is, from a technical standpoint, one of the most complex animation challenges the studio had ever attempted. At 70 feet long in the early scenes, the hair was essentially its own character, it had to flow naturally, respond to physics, interact with the environment, and never look artificial. Disney developed a specific software system called Deep Canvas Evolution to handle the hair simulation. Watch the scene where Rapunzel descends from the tower for the first time, the way the hair catches on the branches, spreads across the grass, moves in the wind, and you're watching a technical achievement disguised as a story moment. The action sequences, particularly the dam flooding scene and the opening castle heist, demonstrate a mastery of animated spatial storytelling. The flooding cave is especially impressive. As the water rises and the light dies, the animators shift to a near monochrome palette shot only in the glow of Rapunzel's hair. The constriction of visual space mirrors the emotional constriction of the moment. It's technically sophisticated and emotionally precise at the same time. Direction, Nathan Greno and Byron Howard. Greno and Howard bring a strong theatrical instinct to their direction. Tangled is paced like a stage musical more than a film in some ways. There's a rhythm to the scene transitions, a sense of choreographed progression that gives the film its particular energy. Their best directorial choice may be in how they handle the film's emotional scale. They resist the urge to escalate everything to maximum drama at all times. When Rapunzel first steps outside, they let the scene breathe. They let her oscillation between joy and guilt play out in real time rather than cutting around it. When the lantern sequence begins, the film is quiet for long stretches, no dialogue, just music, just image, just two people in a boat surrounded by light. This restraint is what makes the emotional peaks land. The filmmakers trust their audience to meet them emotionally without being pushed there. Alan Menken's score and songs. Alan Menken's score for Tangled deserves a detailed breakdown, but I'll focus on the moments that matter most. The film's musical architecture is typically Menken, rich with themes that recur and transform, with motifs that track character development. When Will My Life Begin establishes Rapunzel's character with economy and verve, it's got that Menken bounce that communicates both energy and suppressed yearning. Mother Knows Best is the film's dramatic showcase number, and it's a theatrical tour de force, shifting from sweet to threatening to theatrical without ever losing its comedic veneer. It's sinister precisely because it's so relentlessly entertaining. I've Got a Dream is pure pleasure, an ensemble number with perfect comedic construction, building through increasingly absurd revelations with beautifully timed musical escalations. But I See the Light is the crown jewel. Written with the Broadway ballad tradition clearly in mind, it is a duet that begins with separate verses and gradually moves the two voices into harmony, musically representing the two characters moving toward each other. The orchestration in the final chorus, as the lanterns fill the screen, is full and golden and overwhelming. It won the Golden Globe for Best Original Song and was nominated for the Academy Award. Sound design. One underappreciated element of Tangled's technical accomplishment is its sound design. The frying pan, Rapunzel's weapon of choice, has a specific, resonant, almost comedic clang that becomes one of the film's audio signatures. The way sound is used to contrast the tower's silence with the world's richness, bird song, wind, crowd noise, music, reinforces the thematic transition from isolation to freedom. Section 7, Critical Review and Comparisons, Estimated Runtime, 6 to 8 minutes. Strengths. Tangled's greatest strength is the sophistication of its emotional intelligence. This is a film that understands abuse dynamics well enough to dramatize them precisely without ever becoming a polemic. It never lectures. It never breaks the story to explain the themes. The thematic content is entirely embedded in the narrative, which means that a 5-year-old and a 35-year-old can watch the same film and each take something completely different and entirely valid from it. The film's second great strength is its character work. Rapunzel, Flynn, Gothel, and Maximus are all fully realized. There isn't a major character in this film who exists merely to serve plot functions. Even the most broadly comic characters, the thugs, the kingdom's citizens, have an interiority suggested by their behavior that makes the world feel inhabited. The visual and musical craftsmanship is, as I've described, extraordinary. This is a film that knows what it is aesthetically and executes that vision with complete command. Weaknesses. There are weaknesses, and we should acknowledge them honestly. The film's pacing in the second act has occasional lulls. The romance between Flynn and Rapunzel, while charming and convincing in emotional terms, develops somewhat quickly. There's a credible argument that the film needed another scene or two of genuine difficulty between them before the lantern sequence. The Stabbington brothers are the film's weakest element. They function as plot mechanism, as the vehicle through which Flynn is framed and Rapunzel is returned to the tower, but they have essentially no characterization. They exist to be menacing and to be used by Gothel, and while that serves the story, it represents a missed opportunity in a film otherwise so committed to giving everyone an inner life. Some critics at the time argued that the title change from Rapunzel to Tangled, done, reportedly, to make the film appear less gender-specific in marketing and attract broader audiences, reflected an insecurity about the princess movie format that the film itself had already transcended. It's a fair critique. By the time audiences sat down and actually watched the movie, the concern about whether boys would want to see it seemed laughably moot. The film is so charming, so funny, so genuinely thrilling in its action sequences, that the idea of it being narrowly gendered simply doesn't survive contact with the actual viewing experience. Comparisons. The most natural comparison is to Disney's own classic catalog. Tangled sits most comfortably alongside Beauty and the Beast. Both films feature intelligent, bookish heroines constrained by their circumstances, both feature male leads who are gruff and guarded but capable of profound feeling, and both center the romance in the intellectual and emotional connection between characters rather than in surface attraction. Where Tangled goes further than Beauty and the Beast, I'd argue, is in its psychological specificity around its villain. The Beast is monstrous but redeemable. Gaston is a buffoon inflated to menace. Gothel is something more disturbing, a person who has done something genuinely evil and sincerely believes she has an apostrophe T. That's harder to animate, harder to voice, harder to dramatize, and harder for an audience to process. The fact that the film handles it so successfully is a genuine achievement. Against the broader landscape of animated films from the same era, Tangled holds up remarkably well against How to Train Your Dragon, Kung Fu Panda 2, and even Up. It lacks the raw cinematic ambition of Up's first 10 minutes, very few animated films can touch that, but in terms of consistent craft and emotional investment across its full runtime, it is their equal. And compared to the films that came after it in the Disney revival, Tangled stands as a kind of prototype. The DNA of Tangled is visible in Frozen, in Moana, in Encanto, each of them featuring a female protagonist navigating a constrained or deceived identity, each of them centering the internal journey as decisively as the external adventure. Tangled established the template that Disney animation would spend the next decade refining. Section 8, Final Verdict and Ending, Estimated Runtime, 5 to 7 minutes. There's a moment near the end of Tangled that I want to return to, because I think it captures what this film is actually about better than any single plot point or theme. Eugene has just come back from death. Rapunzel holds him. She's crying. Her hair is short and brown and completely ordinary. The magic is gone. The tower is somewhere behind them. Gothel is dust. The kingdom is waiting. And in that moment, exhausted, injured, stripped of everything constructed and false, Eugene Fitzherbert looks at the girl who saw him truly, and says his truth plainly: "You were my new dream." Because here's what this movie is, at its core. It's a story about two people who were each living inside a constructed reality, one imposed by fear and another constructed by damage, and who found in each other permission to be something real. For Rapunzel, the journey was about reclaiming what was always hers, her name, her kingdom, her identity, her freedom. For Eugene, it was about letting go of the mask and discovering that who he actually is, vulnerable, genuine, capable of love, was more interesting and more worthy than Flynn Rider ever managed to be. And the reason this film resonates so deeply, so specifically, for so many adults, particularly adults who grew up in households with controlling or narcissistic parents, or who have left relationships marked by manipulation and isolation, is that it doesn't pretend these transformations are easy. It doesn't pretend that the first step out of the tower is uncomplicated. It shows the guilt. It shows the terror. It shows the moment when all the constructed safety of captivity suddenly feels safer than the terrifying openness of freedom. And then it shows you what's on the other side of that terror. Lanterns over water. A hand extended. A world that was never as dangerous as you were told. Tangled is for anyone who has ever felt that they were living someone else's version of their life and didn't quite know how to start living their own. It is for children discovering the world for the first time. It is for adults who need reminding that it is never too late to step outside. It is for anyone who has ever looked at a light in the distance and felt, without knowing why, that it was meant for them. Final rating, 9.2 out of 10. This is not a perfect movie. The second act has some structural slack. The villainous henchmen are thin. And there are moments where the film's ambition slightly outruns its execution. But in terms of what animated films are capable of at their best, emotionally complex storytelling, visual artistry of the highest order, musical integration that advances character and theme simultaneously, and a respect for the audience's intelligence that never talks down to them, Tangled achieves something genuinely rare. It made $590 million, but it deserved more. It was nominated for 2 Oscars, but it deserved more consideration. And 14 years after its release, it continues to find new audiences, to change how people understand their own stories, and to remind us that the most dangerous prisons are the ones where the door was never actually locked. Rapunzel didn't need someone to save her. She needed someone to say, the world isn't what she told you it was. Come see for yourself. She did. And everything changed. That's the magic of Tangled. And that magic, unlike Rapunzel's hair, cannot be cut away. Thanks for watching. If this video hit different for you, if you recognized something in Rapunzel's story that felt close to home, leave a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you want to see more deep dives like this one, hit subscribe and I'll see you in the next one. I'm out.